Well, hello, everyone. I have missed you the last couple days that I have not been streaming. I kind of think I look like hell right now, but maybe I look like I always look. I don't know. I actually have a really bad head cold, is why I haven't been streaming. And so I came down with it. Victor has now come down with it. He is asleep on the couch downstairs. It has made its way through my household. Hopefully it'll be recovered. I have my Dayquil right here. And but the thing is that Spy Stream waits for no one. And the benefit of Spy Stream is that I don't have to talk. I do have a very socialist look going. Well, you should see my hair under this here hat, and you'll understand why I have a very socialist look going today. Um, yeah. So guys, welcome to Spy Stream. Spy Stream is when we infiltrate a live woke training, and I stream it. And we show you exactly and precisely what these people are teaching behind closed doors when they don't think you're listening, when they don't think you're watching. I learned about the webinar we're going to be watching today a couple days ago. And, I was really hoping the cold would get better. I actually was supposed to have an interview with a guy today that is doing amazing work with the schools out in Oregon, and with Save Oregon Schools. And Oregon schools are some of the most effed up schools in the entire country. But just because I'm not feeling well and I had a head cold, I said, like, can we just postpone and do this another time? And he said, sure. And so we're gonna do that another time, because I do want to actually be able to focus on these things. Jen, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Dr. K, continue to freak me out. Well, with Spy Stream, we never quite know what we're gonna get. We don't, and I'm not gonna reveal the webinar we're infiltrating just yet, because the thing of it is I have a horde of lunatics that tries to sabotage every single thing that I do online. They're watching right now. Wave to them. Hi. And so I'm going to not reveal the exact webinar that we're streaming until the very last moment. So there is no possible chance that this horde of lunatics can go run to the organization that's doing the webinar and get me kicked out. Don't worry. I'm not signed up under my real name or anything. I have many layers of backup in this whole Spy Stream plan to be able to show you exactly and precisely what people are learning. But I will tell you that today's webinar is in regards to the national standards for teachers who are teaching sex education in K through 12 schools. That's what we're talking about today. The national standards for how teachers are trained to teach sex education in K through 12 schools. And again, without showing you exactly what it is yet, let me see if I can show you this little section of it. Yes, so standard number 2. I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to display it on the screen yet, but I'm going to read it because, again, I don't want to give away what I'm doing. Standard number 2 is racial, reproductive, and social justice and equity. Teacher candidates demonstrate respect for individual, family, and cultural characteristics and experiences that may influence student learning about sexuality and demonstrate a commitment to racial, reproductive, and social justice and equity and the intentional inclusion of all genders, racial and ethnic identities, and sexual orientation. So that is standard number 2 of the National Teacher Preparation Standards for sex education that we're going to be learning about today. Now, if you have never been to a Spy Stream before, I do just want to tell you the webinar is supposed to get started in about 20 minutes. I have not signed in yet because we don't give away our secret identity until, well, we don't ever give away our secret identity in an ideal scenario, but we certainly don't do it until they have time to fix it. But I do just want to, if you've never been to a Spy Stream before, so this is a live training. This is not the same as happy hour. Happy hour is on Fridays at 5 p.m. I think I'm going to do happy hour tomorrow. This weekend's going to be a little bit difficult just because I have the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire state convention. I don't think we're going to be doing Socialism Saturday on Saturday. Sorry. I have libertarian business that I need to attend to, and there's going to be drinking of beer and revelry and stuff like that. And so I might be doing that on Saturday. So we might not be doing Socialism Saturday this week. I apologize. But this is not like happy hour or Socialism Saturday where we are watching pre-recorded footage. This is a live training. I do not know what they're going to say. I do not know what they're going to do. I have no idea. We are going to discover this together. I don't know if their technology is going to work. I mean, we all know that socialists, and these are legitimate socialists, like we all know that they are not necessarily the brightest crayons in the box when it comes to technology. So sometimes it just doesn't work, and that's not my fault. I can't control the socialist technology, all right? So we do the best we can. We stay flexible. We roll with the punches. I mean, there's not an out of this world possibility that I could get caught and kicked out mid webinar. That's happened before. And so we try to do the best we can, but we just don't know. So, we just gotta be flexible, guys. No complaining. I'm doing the best I can over here. I'm a one-woman operation today. Number two, once the live training starts, and this is really why I'm able to do this today, I will not be doing commentary over the training. And the reason is I actually want to be able to hear it. And I want you to be able to hear it as well. But what I will do is I will type comments into the chat, and then, pardon, and then I will display the comments on the screen. So I will still be doing commentary. I will just be doing it on through the chat comments rather than actually talking over it for the most part. Every once in a while I talk over it. But like not I usually try not to, because again, I this is a live training. I can't rewind. We're going into a Zoom, like a private Zoom. And so I can't rewind, I can't go back. I want to be able to hear what's being said, and I want you to be able to hear what's being said, because that is, after all, the entire point of this exercise. Number three, super chats. Just like Jen right here, I do appreciate all super chats, of course, but while the webinar is in progress, I will not be reading the super chats out loud, just like I read Jen's here, but I will be displaying them on the screen for an appropriate amount of time where everyone is going to get the chance to be able to read the super chat for themselves, and I do appreciate it. So those are our rules for Spy Stream. Please mount that like button if you are on board with the rules today. And while we are waiting, in the meantime, and again, guys, the webinar is about to get started in about 20 minutes. In about 10 minutes, probably, I will reveal the webinar that we're going into. But I just want to talk to you a little bit about my actively Unwoke Substack and what I've been doing here. And we're letting people kind of mosey into the webinar. Now, guys, Substack has become my home base for all of my content moving forward. My primary, I have like 15 Substacks, but this is my main one. My primary one is Carlyn, Karlyn .substack.com. And as you can see, I did post about Spy Stream just about a half hour ago to let people know we were doing the stream here today, because it is at a little bit of a different time. Excuse me. And but I'm posting on my Substack pretty much once a day, if not more often than once a day now. I actually have, this week has sucked because, again, like, I haven't been feeling well, so I haven't really like been able to like focus or anything like that. So I actually have a lot of articles that I want to write for the Substack. I've got a lot of backup news that I want to make sure I'm bringing to you guys. I am trying to do the most original unwoke content on the internet right now. All of my content is focused on what is going on in the real world, how the woke ideology manifests in the real world, what you need to know, not only about what is happening, but about the psychology of what's happening, and about how we can fight back and hopefully turn back the cultural revolution that's going on in the country. I do hope you will subscribe for free. Hang on. Mm. I do hope you will subscribe for free. Again, Carlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. But if you want to support the work I'm doing for $5 a month or $50 a year, I do really appreciate it. I have a goal that I'm trying to hit, and I've only got 5 days left to hit it, guys. I need 35 more people to become paying subscribers on my Substack. Again, $5 a month, $50 a year. And if I don't hit that goal by the end of the month, I'm going to start turning on a paywall. I don't really want to do that, but the fact of the matter is that I'm trying to make activism my full-time job. I do not want to work for one of these politically motivated organizations. I don't want to be beholden to any political ideology. I want to be beholden to you, to tell you the truth about what is going on, present you evidence, present you receipts, all that good stuff. And that's really what I care about. But in order to be able to do that, I need to be able to be funded by you. I know that times are tough for a lot of people, and I understand that. If you can't afford to financially support the work I'm doing right now, please consider sharing it out. Again, subscribe for free, share the articles on your Facebook, your Twitters, through to your friends, your family, all that stuff. That really does help me out. It helps me grow my audience. But if you can financially support the work I'm doing and help me make my articles free for everyone on the internet with no paywall, then I ask you that please do so. Again, I'm looking for 35 more people to join my Substack as a paid supporter by the end of the month, so that I can keep that paywall down. I think this is a completely achievable goal. I have several thousand people a day reading my Substack, anywhere between 7 and 10,000. I have way more reach on Substack than I do on YouTube or any of the videos. The video, well, actually, no, I actually do have pretty good reach on some of the video platforms, not necessarily on YouTube. But anyway, I have 7 to 10,000 people reading a day reading my Substack, and so I think this is a completely achievable goal. If you value what I'm doing, please consider supporting it. Zacko Crazy says, from the event description, if the one I found is correct, is a training seminar for professionals. Yes, that is correct. This is a training seminar for teachers who are teaching sex education in K through 12 schools. Now, the reason that we do this is because if you know what the teachers are being trained on, you know what's showing up in the classroom. Teacher professional development training is one of the key areas that is just being completely overlooked by so many people covering unwoke content, because teacher professional development is part of how the woke ideology has really gotten solidified in the public schools, because it is mandated in many states as part of the state board of education for teachers to meet their licensing guidelines. So first what happens is the teachers get it in college, and so they're getting it in their college of education, but then they graduate, they leave the colleges of education, but it's constantly reinforced through these professional development organizations that are actually conducting the teacher training. And so if you know what those professional organizations are teaching, you can make a pretty, I think, grounded assumption that if a professional organization is teaching these things to teachers, these things are going to show up in classrooms. So it's one of those ways that we can kind of peek beneath the surface and really understand what the teachers are learning as part of their professional development curriculum. And that's going to translate to what your kids are learning in schools. And like I said, and I will reveal the webinar in about 5 more minutes, this is a national teacher prep sex ed webinar. So this is an organization that's trying to push out national standards into the schools, and I want to see what they're talking about. And listen, here's the thing, guys. You might watch this webinar and you might watch what they say and you might think, I don't have a problem with any of this. And that's okay. It is okay if you see the webinar that we're going to show you today and you're like, this seems actually completely reasonable to me. Listen, I'm not a person that thinks that sex ed should be banned in school. I think there should be sex education in school. I do. I think that kids should be taught how not to get pregnant. I think kids should be taught how not to get STDs. I don't think that sex should be demonized. I don't think it's healthy for sex to be demonized. Where I start to have a problem is when you start convincing kids that they are a different gender than which they were born, which most of the time is not the truth. Sometimes it is. I'm not one of those people that say there's no such thing as a trans kid. I don't believe that. And so like I do believe that there are circumstances in which, these questions do come up. I just think it's extremely rare. And in a lot of schools, we're seeing these rates anywhere from 30, 40, 50% of students are identifying as gender nonconforming. They're getting those ideas from somewhere, and I don't think it's real. I think it's being planted by their teachers, quite frankly, and I don't think it's good. I don't think it's healthy. I think it's going to lead to a lot of people making really bad decisions. And so I want people to be aware of what is being taught in schools. Sometimes we're going to see what's being taught in schools and we're going to go, that's actually okay. I don't actually mind that at all in any way. I think it's fine. And that is the ideal scenario. I am not going to be one of these people that is just going to become an outrage junkie every single time something about sex is mentioned in schools. Kids are going, spoiler alert for the Christians out there, not all the Christians, just the really conservative ones. Your kids are going to learn about sex. They're going to learn about it. And even more surprising, they're probably going to have it in high school. If, no, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to have it earlier than that, but like whatever. They're going to learn about sex, folks. Like it's going to happen. And so what I am hopeful a best case scenario is that we see preparation standards where, they're getting a good all-around education about what it is, how it works, not necessarily how to do it because they're going to figure that out. Believe me, they're going to figure it out. But like how not to get pregnant. I think teaching kids how not to get pregnant is a good and productive thing. I think teaching kids how not to get an STD is a good and productive thing. Right? And so if that's what I think teaching kids how to put a condom on a banana, everyone had to do it. Everyone was embarrassed by it, but it was important things that you needed to learn to survive in the real world, right? Or, at least not have a kid when you're 18. And so I think all these things are good. And if that's what they're going to be taught, they're going to be taught how their bodies work, how to protect themselves, what abuse is, things like that, things about consent. You will hear no problem from me at all. I think that the best case scenario when we're looking at the school stuff is that we're perfectly fine with what's being taught. That is a good thing. It's a positive thing. We don't want to be outraged just to be outraged. However, through experience now of watching many of these, I have learned that, that's not necessarily the only thing that's being taught in school. And so we're just going to look. We're just going to listen. On SpyStream, we don't disrupt their webinar at all. We let them say what they want to say. And that's what it is. All right. So I do want to share with you guys what we are going to be watching today. All right. This is what we're going to be watching. And let me make this a little bit bigger. Seekus. Fucking Seekus. Always Seekus, isn't it? Zacko Crazy Spy Stream! Yay! Yeah, Thomas from Atheists for Liberty. If the religious conservatives who are pro-life want to prevent abortions, they should be encouraging sex education in high schools. I cannot agree with you more, Thomas. I think that sex education is a good thing. I do. All right, so this is what we're going to be watching. Seekus, Sex Ed for Social Change. Seekus is one of the more woke organizations out there. They've been pushing these ideas into schools for decades now. If you see Seekus showing up in your school, you need to be paying attention. Seekus and fucking Glisten. Seekus and Glisten. If you see either of those organizations showing up in your schools, you need to be paying attention to what is going on. So, here's what we're going to be watching. The Future of Sex Education Initiative is excited to announce the release of the second edition of the National Teacher Preparation Standards for Sex Education. And I do have the entire PDF right here. I'm going to pop this into the chat so that you all can take a look at the PDF as we're making our way through it. Join our webinar on January 26th from 2 to 3 p.m. to learn about the purpose, rationale, and application of these standards for institutions of higher education and pre-service teachers. The webinar will discuss the purpose of the National Teacher Preparation Standards for Sex Ed, identify the rationale for its creation and revision, and discuss the application by institutions of higher education and pre-service teachers so they can increase the efficacy of sex education instruction in professional settings. And you see there, we've got some women, I suppose, that are moderating and and their internal communication strategists, so that's going to be great. Excuse me. And there you go. And so this is Seekus, Sex Ed for Social Change. Answer: Sex Ed Honestly, Advocates for Youth, and futureofsexed.org. Folks, that is what we are watching today. The webinar is going to get started in about 8 minutes. Yep, wait, what? Seekis brings in Trojans, and I don't mean the condom kind. That's exactly correct. If it was just the condom kind, I would have no issue with it at all. No issue with it at all. Sam, I never knew how woke my county schools were until you inspired me to investigate. That's exactly right. And guys, the Schools Exposed program, which is schoolsexposed.com. Actually, let me pop that up. Hang on. The Schools Exposed program was supposed to launch this week. Sadly, I can't record because of my voice. So, this is a program that I crowdfunded for, and it will be launching in the next week or so. Like the reality is, I cannot record the material that I need to while I'm sick. It's just not working. I tried; it doesn't work. I sound awful. And I want the recordings of it to be like really, really like I don't want to record it when I'm sick. You have a certain energy when you're sick, and I don't want to bring that into Schools Exposed. But it will be launching very soon, and Schools Exposed is going to teach you how to investigate what is going on in the public schools with public information. You can find out more at schoolsexposed.com. And if you click this Join Schools Exposed thing right up at the top, you're going to be taken over to the Indiegogo, where you can actually get involved. You can continue to fund the project. You can learn more about it. You can get your perks. You can get get a seat in the class when it first opens. You can even get a hand-knitted shawl by me if you so want. And so you can learn more about the program there and actually get one of the first seats. And I will be communicating out to folks when the course room opens. What's going to happen with Schools Exposed is the online course room with on-demand recordings that are going to teach you and walk you through how to investigate what is going on in the public schools. That's going to open first. And then we're going to start doing monthly, once a month, live Zoom calls with all the participants to talk about what's going on in the schools, how to investigate them, answer questions, do live exercises, things like that. And we're going to use all of this. And my goal is to make the largest archive of documents available on the internet about school equity and social justice programs. Now, I've just started building out this archive. We've got the Chicago Public Schools, Cambridge Public Schools, Portland Public Schools, Burlington, Vermont Public Schools. I'm working on a whole bunch of other ones that will be up at some point. We actually have a list of over 130 schools that people have asked us to investigate, and we will be going through it just like one by one. But the first thing I need to do is to get the Schools Exposed program launched. And if you want to help out, you can go head over again, click the Schools Exposed program, and that'll take you over to the Indiegogo if you want to get involved, you want to help out. And this is basically what I'm doing is I'm creating an army of people who are investigating the schools using publicly available information. And as Sam says, like once you start looking and you know how to look and you know where to look and you know what keywords to look for and you know where all of this information is in public. I cannot emphasize this enough. All of it's in public. We usually don't even need to do FOIA requests. Sometimes we do FOIA requests, and the proceeds of Schools Exposed is going to be partially go towards funding FOIA requests. But most of the time, you can find it on the school websites if you know where to look and how to look and what keywords to look for. And that is what I'm going to teach people how to do in Schools Exposed so that we can create an army of people who knows how to do this. And guess what, guys? Once you have an army of parents who are armed with this information where they don't need to go to another organization, that's when you start to have your game changers. That's when you can really start to turn things around. And so that's what I'm working on. And SpyStream is a part of that. And I think it's really great, and I'm having a great time. All right, guys, let's see how things are going. Let's see how things are going. And the webinar should, in theory, be getting started in a couple of minutes. Cider says, have you been keeping up with the AP African American History course in Florida DeSantis story? Cider, I literally just got wind of that like right before I went live for this, so I haven't really investigated it that much. Are students suing the schools or something? like that. I don't know that much about it. I will look into it after the webinar though. Cider, by the way, high school student. High school student helping us to expose this stuff. How cool is that? Love it. All right, guys, if this is your first spy stream or if you've been here before, please mount that like button for me. Again, I do thank you for your patience as I am not feeling my best today, but we're still spy stream stops for no one. So luckily I don't have to talk as much when spy stream is live. So we're just waiting to get into the webinar and then I will bring it up on the screen when I can in a way that I ain't gonna get caught. Cider is the best. It's true. It's true. Yeah, okay, so they are suing. Oh my god, Florida. I'm telling you, man, parents have gotta start using the courts. If you care about fighting back in the schools, and part of why I want to expose all the documents and these trainings that are going on in schools is because something has gotta light a fire under someone's ass to start suing. I don't have kids in school. I can't do it. The only thing I can do is show you guys what's going on, but those of you who have kids in school haven't owned it, like, it is a responsibility to be pushing back on these things, or at least getting your kids out of school, man. And you're seeing how the left uses the courts and the legal system. You gotta do the same thing. All right, guys, as a reminder, as we are waiting for this webinar to start, I do just wanna remind everyone, we are watching a live training. I do not know what's going to happen. I do not know what they're going to say. I do not know what they're going to do. So we got to roll with the punches and we are just going to let it play out as it plays out. I will not be doing commentary over the training because I want to be able to actually hear what they're saying, but I will type comments in chat just like this and display it on the screen when I have something to say. If you have comments, I will also display some of your comments on screen as well. So please feel free to chat in what you're thinking about it as we watch the webinar as well. And if you send in a super chat, I will not read the super chat out loud because again, I actually do want to hear what they say, but I'm happy to display the super chat for a requisite amount of time for you guys to be able to read it and for the super chatter to get their point across. Let's see. Should be coming any time now.
Recording in progress.
There's no sound yet.
Welcome, everybody. I see we have people coming in.
Can you guys hear?
We want to welcome you to this wonderful release
Let me know if you can hear
of
the sound.
the FOSSI National Teacher Preparation Standards for Sex Education. This is the second edition, and it is thrilling to know that we have just released that.
Okay, I'm gonna be quiet
and
now.
so we're going to
Enjoy
take
the
just
show.
a couple more minutes, and we'll let people get in, and then we're going to kick it off and get started. Again, thanks for being here. If you can, in the chat, drop us where your location is, what school or university you're representing, and give us the, good old hurrah before we get started. We're really excited. All right. Welcome, North Carolina. I'm going to call you out if I see you. Delaware's in the house. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Florida. University of Kentucky. Let's go. Let's go. We are absolutely thrilled to have you in attendance today. We have some really great insights that we're going to be sharing, and we hope that through this webinar, you will be able to deeply understand how beneficial implementing these standards into your program can help really further your health education programs in a very robust way to facilitate sex education for all, because that's what we want. We know that it saves lives. So we are definitely thrilled to have you here. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Michelle Slaybaugh. My pronouns are she, her. I am the director of I'm director of social impact and strategic communications for SECUS, Sex Ed for Social Change. And I am a part of the thought leadership at the FOSSI initiative. So thank you so much. I keep seeing Florida pop up, and guess what? You know what? In the belly of the beast, y'all are here, and we are so thrilled to have you here. I'm seeing a lot of names pop up that I recognize. So let's go ahead and start to give you the background of FOSSI and kind of how FOSSI came together. You know, FOSSI's been around since 2007, and it was an initiative in which brought together Answers, SECUS, Sex Ed for Social Change, as well as Advocates for Youth. And you know, the mission of FOSSI was to come together and really utilize our resources, our insights, our skills to advance sex education in the public school setting. And over the 10 plus years, 15 years that FOSSI has been in existence, there have been incredible advancements in the field with the National Sex Education Standards 1 and the 2nd edition, as well as the development of the National Teacher Preparation Standards for Sex Education. This is the 2nd edition. It was just released hot off the presses. And we are super, super, super excited to have you here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And before we get too far, I want to continue to, let me see here. Are we good with the recording and everything, Jen? Okay, thank you very much for letting me know that. I want to go ahead and just kind of talk about our presenters today. We are blessed today to be walking through this experience with Allison McKee, who's the Executive Director of Answers, and Bonnie Edmondson, who is a professor at the Emerita School of Health Education, Southern Connecticut State University. And both of these individuals are bringing a wealth of knowledge. Bonnie has over 33 years experience in state government, K through 12 and higher education, highly skilled in policy and program development, and is also, you know, experienced at coaching at the Olympic, elite, collegiate, high school levels of track and field. I mean, we got a coach today, everybody. So that's super, super exciting. And with Allison has had a long career in the advancement of sex education in the nonprofit sector and the higher education sector, and is a very skilled sex education educator and health promotion leader. So thank you so much for both of them for being with us. And so let's talk about now these learning objectives and what we're hoping you will walk away from after this presentation. So the National Sex Education Teacher Prep Standards were conceptualized for higher institutions of education to promote sexuality education in health, physical education, and really to prepare teachers to facilitate these programs as a way to understand how to guide curriculum, instruction, and assessment for individuals who will teach sex education. So really giving them a full, well-rounded experience in understanding what it's really going to look like once you get in those classrooms. I think that what I'm excited about most in these learning objectives is really helping people understand the rationale for why these teaching preparation standards are important and how to implement them. Our speakers today are going to provide examples of the application and how to really ensure your programs at your universities are as robust and indelible as possible. And then finally, they will provide for you how you can utilize these teacher preparation standards to increase effectiveness of instruction in their professional settings. So we're going to go over the 7 areas within teacher candidates, or ideas that teacher candidates should show, and we'll provide you an opportunity to be able to evaluate competency. That's professional disposition, diversity and equity, content and knowledge, legal and professional ethics, planning, implementation, and assessment. And finally, that would also include, did I get them all? I think I might have got them all. Being able to meet students where they are. And so with that, I think if we don't have any questions about FOSSI, because I kind of started with that, I think we are ready to hand it over. How do we feel about that? We can drop a thumbs up or exclamation point in the chat. I can't see anybody, to be quite frank. So there's that, And at that, I'm going to go ahead and let Allison take it away.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you today. And I'm going to be starting us off with a little bit about the why behind the updates to these standards. So I think it's, and we can advance to the next slide. I think it's really important to know in terms of the general overview that what we're aiming for is to establish a shared vision of the knowledge, skills, and disposition that entry-level teachers really should master to effectively teach sex ed. And we know that that is just one facet of high quality sex education, but it's really where the focus is for this set of standards. If we're thinking about the other things that we know would contribute to really robust, high quality, comprehensive sex ed, of course, things like curricula, the professional development for our in-service teachers, state, local policy that supports implementation, they all make up this holistic approach. But today we're really going to be talking about this guidance around how we make sure that when folks leave their pre-service training, that they feel prepared, they feel confident, and really that they understand that there's unique challenges to teaching sex ed, and they have the skills and the tools to be able to address those. What we also wanted to do is help faculty and administrators in higher ed programs that are preparing teachers really build training that is robust and that can help meet some of those needs aligned with current best practices for sex ed. So some of the things that we're hoping these standards can help address is preparing new teachers to enact this high quality sex education, to really focus it around the needs of their students. So we know that learner-driven sex ed is what's really most impactful. So how do we help educators be able to deliver sex ed in a way that meets the needs of students across a variety of different abilities and needs and perspectives, making sure that research is at the core and best practices are at the core of the work that's happening. I think very close to a lot of our hearts is making sure that the environment is supportive and engaging. And Bonnie, a little bit later, is going to talk about some of the changes that we hope help address that, because we know that students learn best when they're in an environment that supports them and sees them. And then, of course, using pedagogical practices that can help address some of those individual student needs and some of the strategies to do that. So the need for why we believe these standards are really needed. We know that being prepared professionally is incredibly important. Any subject, I always talk all the time to folks about, if you're teaching a new math skill and you have no foundational information in how to do that, even though you may know how to solve the math problem, you may not know how to convey that to students and how to convey it in a way that's impactful for them and allows them to build their skills. So we really want these standards to be able to help address the unique needs, again, that folks will need when they're teaching sex ed, so that the instruction is high quality and effective, and we know that it can have impact on students. The well-prepared educators and consistency are really key. If students are getting a greatly varied experience from teacher to teacher, especially based on where they're trained, that's going to impact the outcome of that efficacy, right? If, you know, so I think that's really important. And then we also know that teacher training is the most significant indicator in determining confidence. As I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of us who are involved in health education and sex education know that they can be challenging topics. People can have a wide variety of values, feelings, opinions. There's our own shame and stigma that can come, especially when it's around sexuality education. And that heading into the classroom, feeling as confident and prepared and having had the practice at addressing that and balancing those different needs is incredibly important. I'm going to pass it to Bonnie.
Great. Thanks, Allison, and welcome everybody. As Allison set the stage for the why, and you know, back one, please. Thanks. Sex education is most often delivered in health and physical by health and physical education teachers at the middle school and high school levels, and by classroom teachers at the elementary level. And we know that many health educators don't have sex ed as part of their pre-service coursework, and as a result, implementation suffers. Other barriers include limited time, resources, and restrictive policies, and resistance from communities. Additionally, pre-service programs often fail to reflect unique preparation required to successfully teach sensitive subject matter in a culturally responsive and trauma-informed manner, including the ability to foster a safe learning environment where students are comfortable discussing sensitive content. As a consequence, educators may typically avoid teaching essential content they may consider controversial. These standards clearly outline what pre-service programs must include in order for our students to be properly prepared to effectively deliver sex education. Next slide, please. And this is a great summary slide describing why these standards are so important. And we decided to share this because it's such a comprehensive piece and such a very powerful quote. Implementing quality sex education goes beyond delivering information. Educators must have the knowledge and skills to provide young people with opportunities to explore their own identities and values, along with the values and beliefs of their families and communities in a culturally responsive and trauma-informed way. They should feel prepared to allow young people to practice communication, negotiation, decision-making, and assertiveness skills they need to create healthy relationships, both sexual and non-sexual, throughout their lives. And again, that's a huge why for us, and certainly absolutely essential. Next slide. Allison?
Yes. So a little bit about the process. How were these created? How did revisions happen? Because I think it's important to kind of understand the grounding of these standards. So the original committee that met to work on these standards, that was in 2012. And it was really a robust group of folks from health education, teacher preparation, the sex ed world, higher ed, state departments of education, national orgs, governmental orgs. So there were a wide group of folks that were involved in the original development of these standards. And that advisory committee, again, recognized really the need for core competencies among teachers who are already in service, but decided that for the purpose of this document that we would really focus on where the needle could be moved around the pre-service aspect. How do we train folks and put them in the best position possible for when they enter the classroom? So I think that it's important to know that the original standards were published in the Journal of School Health along with a corresponding article. And I think we often share that just so folks know that there's peer-reviewed journals involved, that this really has some credibility. This was not just a group of folks who decided what these should be. A lot of opinions, a lot of vetting, and that peer-reviewed piece were in place. And I think what this original release did is it really helped people understand not only how important the pre-service training is, but really how limited it is for many folks who intend to teach sex ed as a part of their roles, whether in elementary school, middle school, or high school. And as a result, you can see here, we've shared that 21 institutes of higher ed in 15 states have actually changed programmatic requirements as a result of this, which I think is just wonderful when you think about the overall impact and how many folks hopefully leave these teacher preparation programs more confident, more ready, and able to give students what they need in terms of sex ed. So we'll go, whoop. Perfect. So in terms of the updates, it's important to know that after the 7 years of implementation, so when these were originally released till we looked at them again, we had 7 years of feedback, which was really helpful for the internal review piece. And FOSSI was able to use a lot of that valuable feedback to make some initial changes and recommendations. And then again, another group of experts, this time I think even broader, was brought together and gave us really valuable suggestions for things that we could add and change. And Bonnie is going to spend a little bit of time specifically calling out for folks what is different in this edition and what have we added. But all of this, again, to be aligned with changes to the national sex ed standards that I also think I'll talk a little bit more about in a few slides. Bonnie, did you want to say something?
No, I'm going to I'll pick up when you finish that.
Yeah. So we can go to the next slide. This is just a list for folks to know where the national teacher prep standards are aligned with other existing education standards. And I talked a little bit on the last slide. I think it was incredibly important for FOSSI to make sure that not only were these standards well vetted and grounded in research, but they were also aligned with standards that especially institutions in higher ed may be more used to referring to, or maybe just have a longer history of working with. So these are those other standards that many folks use when they are preparing health educators, when they are looking at what's happening in the classroom, and the revised standards really do align with these other pieces of guidance in the field. I think we can go one more. Yeah, perfect. So the other thing we wanted to do is, because sometimes this creates confusion, is talk about the other two existing documents. One of them being the National Sex Ed Standards. So the National Sex Ed Standards, first edition 2012, second edition 2020, these are really the standards that focus on the core content and skills for young people or for students. And the updated version of these standards really reflects a lot of advancements, especially around sexual orientation, gender identity, racial and reproductive justice, addressing technology and the role that technology now plays in young people's lives, some other medical technology that is advanced in that time. But this is the document that folks are really using to guide what happens for students in sex ed in K through 12. Then the other side of the screen, you have the professional learning standards for sex education. And these were created by the Sex Education Collaborative in 2018. And the real difference, I think sometimes folks are confused about the teacher prep standards and the PLESI, we call them PLESI standards. The PLESI standards are really meant for in-service teachers. So these standards guide professional development for teachers who are already in the classroom doing the work. The wonderful thing, and I'll talk a little bit more about this on the next slide, is that all three of these are aligned and are intended to be used collectively, right? That we have what should students be learning. We can actually go to the next slide if it's helpful. We have what should teachers be learning, or what should students be learning through the National Sex Ed Standards. We have what should pre-service teachers be learning through the National Teacher Prep Standards, and then these professional learning standards for sex ed to really help current teachers and guide the professional development to make sure that they're able to keep up with changes, to stay as relevant as possible, and to continue to meet the needs of students. So I'm going to turn it back to Bonnie to talk about a little bit about what's new and how to use the standards.
Right. Thanks, Allison. And as Allison mentioned, there are updates. And so what I'd like to do for this section is just talk a little bit about what's new. Like any credible resource, it's essential to consider feedback and lessons learned from implementation by key stakeholders in order to stay relevant, research informed, and reflective of best practice and current thinking in the field. As a result, this new edition includes new topics and expanded focus in some areas to provide increased guidance to teacher prep programs and teacher candidates, new indicators, and refocus topic strands to better address what's necessary, be effective and high quality sector educator, and more detailed rationale and examples in each section. So let's take a look at the standards. There are 7 national teacher preparation standards for sex education. Each has a rationale for why it's important, performance indicators for what students should know and be able to do, and examples of what it and how it might play out within a district. I'll provide a brief overview of each standard and share a couple sample indicators and examples. For standard number 1, professional disposition, the teacher candidates demonstrate comfort and proficiency with, commitment to, and self-efficacy in teaching sex education. Research shows that with comfort and commitment to, sex education has a direct positive impact on the quality of instruction. Effective sex education teachers have an appreciation for the value of and commitment to sex education and young people's right to access the information and skills they need to make healthy decisions, and are committed to identifying the needs of their students, continually seeking out professional development opportunities to expand their knowledge, developing their skills, and increasing their comfort level in delivering quality and effective sex education. One sample indicator that's found in the document is under professional disposition is demonstrate how to advocate to stakeholders and decision makers that sex education is vital for student health and well-being. So that's the indicator. So how does it play out? What might it look like in a local district? Well, for example, a teacher attends a Board of Education meeting where an updated sex education curriculum is being discussed. The teacher speaks at the meeting in favor of the new curriculum, referencing youth sexual health data from the local health department and sexual health questions they have received from their students. So that certainly is reflective of a professional disposition. Standard number 2, racial, reproductive, and social justice and equity. This standard has expanded from a focus on diversity and equity to one that centers on social, racial, and reproductive justice and equity, and includes the intentional inclusion of all sexual orientations, genders, and racial ethnic identities. Under this standard, effective sex education teachers are respectful of multiple dimensions and intersectionality of diverse identities and tailor instruction appropriately. They convey their commitment to social, racial, and reproductive justice and equity, including health equity. And in addition, content and skills addressing these populations are woven throughout these updated standards to reflect the importance of intentionally affirming and addressing the needs of students with a range of sexual orientations, genders, and identities. You'll find this theme throughout the strands. And one thing that we wanted to make sure was that it just wasn't one lesson about it. It is threaded through, and it's a true commitment to addressing racial, reproductive, social justice, and equity. So what's a sample indicator for this particular standard? Well, one sample performance indicator for students is to be able to identify continuing professional learning related to school-based sexual education, including learning opportunities that focus on social, racial, and reproductive justice, language inclusivity, trauma-informed, and intersectional approaches. So what would that look like in practice? Well, as an example, a teacher is assigned to cover health education for the first time in their career. They recognize that some of the students identify as LGBTQ+ or have LGBTQ+ family members. The teacher realizes that they never learned how to use inclusive and affirming language. So they seek out professional learning prior to starting this unit. That's the essence of Standard 2. Standard 3, content knowledge. Teacher candidates have accurate and current knowledge of the biological, emotional, social, and legal aspects of human sexuality. This standard has been updated to reflect the national K-12 student sex education standards. Outlined here in this standard, effective sex education teachers at a minimum have knowledge about content areas described in the student standards, understand relevant federal and state laws and policies, and district and local rules and regulations specific to sexuality and youth in their community, such as age of consent, confidentiality in healthcare settings, and minors' rights to healthcare. Effective sex education teachers know the sexual health resources available to students in their school, district, and community, including sexual health services and mental health services, such as emergency contraception, prenatal care, adoption, abortion, pregnancy, testing, treatment, and other forms of care. Next slide, please. Standard 4, legal and professional ethics. Teacher candidates make pedagogical decisions based on current federal and state laws and policies, school district rules and regulations, as well as professional ethics. Under this standard, effective sex education teachers understand their professional and ethical obligations and their responsibility to adhere to federal and state laws and policies and school district rules and regulations. They have an ethical framework and a professional responsibility to identify colleagues within a school district, such as your Title IX coordinator, your health service providers, your mental health service providers, such as school counselors, social workers, school psychologists, who could provide guidance when needed. Additionally, many state departments of education typically have teacher professional codes of ethics and in addition, professional organizations have health education specific professional codes of ethics and responsibilities that must be utilized to guide effective practice. Standard 5, planning. Teacher candidates plan age and developmentally appropriate sex education that is aligned with best practices, standards, and laws and policies. It emphasizes skill development and reflects the diversity and needs of the school community. Under this standard, effective sex education teachers, they know the state laws and policies that specify what can and cannot be taught, what topics must be emphasized, and how instruction should be delivered, and plan lessons that meet state and local policies and standards. Effective teachers know and access resources that are approved for use and adhere to review and approval process of instructional material within their districts. They plan scope and sequence that is data informed and developmentally appropriate, and they ensure that curriculum includes functional knowledge and specific skills to adopt healthy behaviors, as well as address students' beliefs and attitudes related to sexuality. Additionally, they allot for sufficient time for students to practice skills. It's not just a one-shot deal. It's an ongoing commitment to practicing, giving students opportunities to practice, learn and practice skills and reinforce skill development. And they also utilize research-based and informed resources to assist with selecting age and developmentally appropriate content. One of the most useful resources that I've used in my practice is CDC's Health Education Curriculum Analysis Tool. They have specific modules based on content, and they do indeed have a sexual health module. And for each grade cluster, they have developmentally appropriate and age-appropriate performance indicators of what students should know and be able to do by specific grade levels. And our courses, we've curriculum development, sexual health, we refer to that resource to really help students to say, well, when do I teach what and when? So that if you haven't already had an opportunity to take a look at the so-called HECAT, H-E-C-A-T, I would really implore you to do so. It's a valuable resource, just one of many, but tried and true. Standard 6, implementation. The teacher candidates use a variety of effective instructional strategies to teach sex education based on current research, evidence, and pedagogical theory. For many pre-service students, taking a health or sex education class may be the first time that they've had the opportunity to discuss sexuality openly with a trusted adult. Under this implementation standard, effective sex education teachers set group agreements and class expectations, create a safe and supportive classroom culture and environment for all students and each student. And a sample indicator I've chosen to include here is really kind of a laundry list of absolutely essential components of implementation. Demonstrating, and I'll just read a few of them. They're clearly listed in the document, but demonstrating the ability to implement sex education that meets the following criteria: that it's age and developmentally appropriate, culturally responsive, trauma-informed, authentic, grounded in principles of social, racial, and reproductive justice and equity, and accessible to people of differing learning styles and physical and cognitive abilities. And you'll see that that's the crossover. And I believe there was a question about accessing and including special education teachers, and how important that is to make sure that each of our students has access to appropriate education. And finally, and you'll notice that there's a strong integration of planning and implementation of curriculum. And finally, standard 7 is assessment. Teacher candidates implement effective and culturally responsive strategies to assess student attitudes, knowledge, and skills to improve sex education instruction. Under this standard, effective sex education teachers recognize the importance of assessing their students' knowledge, attitudes, and skills to improve their instruction. They utilize strategies that are not only effective at gathering honest student input, but also are equitable, inclusive, and culturally responsive, allowing student choice around assessment strategies, use of equitable calling on strategies. Those are examples of what we're talking about. And they're also trauma-informed. These techniques will enable an effective teacher to continuously receive valuable feedback from students, as well as supervisors, to ensure the instruction is meeting the intended learning outcomes. So in summary, the updated national teacher preparation standards for sex education reflect an increased emphasis on the need for using culturally responsive and trauma-informed approaches. Teaching must embrace and actively engage and adjust to students and their various cultural identities and lived experiences. As a guiding principle, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, also known as SAMHSA, they have a great document entitled Concept of Trauma and Guidance for Trauma-Informed Approach. And it provides an excellent guidance for educators to utilize these such informed strategies when implementing sex education. So those are your 7 standards. Next slide, please. So how do we use these standards? So as higher education institutions, we are in key leadership roles to make the national teacher prep standards an integral component of our health education professional preparation programs. The standards must drive pre-service teachers in understanding and demonstrating the key indicators as defined within each standard and listed here on this slide. Next slide, please. The standards should guide coursework, instruction, and assessment decisions. We need to ask ourselves the following questions. Does our program offer appropriate courses? How are we using the standards to drive curriculum development? Are the standards visible in our syllabi? Are the appropriate instructional strategies being implemented? And how do we know? Are we using authentic, formative, and summative assessments? And is there clear alignment of curriculum, instruction, and assessment and reflective, and are these reflective of the standards? In addition, the standards can be used in other ways to help support and drive effective education, such as guiding the development of new accreditation or licensure policies or testing practices, or the revision of existing policies or testing practices regarding sex education. One thing and one living example, when I was a consultant at the State Department of Education in Connecticut, I was managing the CDC DASH grant for sexual health, HIV, STD prevention. And one of the things that we really realized was that our teacher certification requirements, most of our teachers get cross-endorsed and need 30 credits to get cross-endorsed in health education. And there wasn't anything in the teacher regulations that required a sexual health education course. And we also found that many of our teachers coming out as physical education teachers or another content had very limited exposure to sexual health, much like we talked about. So therefore, what we did was we met with our certification department. We pulled our institutes of higher education together and in health and physical education programs. And we talked about what is needed in order to properly prepare our students. And so we came up with draft language, and we had submitted it as part of a revision for our teacher regulations. You know, I thought we did a great job with that piece. Unfortunately, the regulations are still sitting in draft form, but at least they're in there and they're ready to roll. But that's something, because I know there's many State Department folks on the call here, or on the Zoom call, that you might want to consider thinking about working with your departments of certification. And next slide, please. And finally, the standards can influence evaluations used in hiring practices in educational settings and support professional learning and professional growth to remain current and relevant. In summary, utilizing the National Teacher Preparation Standards for Sex Education to drive program development strengthens the opportunity for implementation of current and relevant practices that properly prepare our teachers to deliver effective sex education, and in turn positively influence the health and educational outcomes of our K through 12 students. So I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle on this one.
Thank you so much. What an amazing amount of information, just incredibly robust in what we both have all experienced and witnessed here today. So thank you so much, Bonnie. Now I'd like to turn it over to our participants, and I'd like you to drop in the chat, what is one takeaway from today's webinar that you will use to inform your programs or practice? We are really eager to hear what you're going to walk away with. So please share in the chat. I'm going to keep my eye on the chat. I'm not sure if there is an option to come off mute and ask the question. That would be a Jen question, but if not, just go ahead and drop it in the chat. Additionally, if you have any questions or would like further clarification, you can also come off mute and ask that at this time. There are some great comments in here. The important role of standards in assuring that what is understood as best practice and what is known about what young people need is really valuable to teachers, and making sure it's available to those teachers. That's great. Thank you. Uniqueness of teaching sex ed. It is so much more than basic topics. And I can attest from being a sex educator that, you know, state to state, it's different. District to district, it's different. And even classroom to classroom is different because of people not having access to these teaching standards. But I also think it's important to remember that each one of those beautiful tiny humans we have in our classes brings a new landscape to the classroom, kind of like the buildings of the skyline in New York. Without one of them, the skyline would look very, very different. So it is important to really provide educators a really solid framework. And I think that's what these standards do. Allison or Bonnie, I'm gonna let you kind of comment, chime in. If you've seen something in the chat that you think is good to share, please do.
Yeah, I'm just seeing the comment that the recognition that many people teaching sex ed are not well prepared as sex educators and don't know all the answers. I was just having a conversation the other day with other very seasoned sex educators, and we were talking about not always having all the answers. And I think that's an important recognition, is that like we do need to look at these guiding documents, but we also need to look at like it's part of the reason for the revisions, because things change. The information is always changing, our students are always changing, and I think we owe it to our students and to the people we are helping prepare to be future sex educators to acknowledge that this isn't like a one and done. Like, we don't hope the standards just go out there and it's it forever. There's an adaptations and change that'll happen. And that at the core of it, I love, Michelle, that analogy of the skyline. Like the students are the reason, and that learner driven focus and that want for them to have what they need to grow into healthy, happy, high functioning adults is really what it's all about. Ooh, I'm seeing that comment too from Megara, like not just choosing whose schedule it's convenient for, right? Which sometimes does happen. I know I've taught intro to human sexuality courses sometimes as an adjunct because no one else wanted to teach them, or the only person whose schedule it worked for was like not really prepared, and institutions were like, oh great, this is what you do, you'll take it. But how often does that happen, whether in K through 12 or higher ed, where whoever inherits the sex ed class is like just whoever can make it work? And really that we need to prioritize the person who's best prepared and that professional disposition, the person who has the professional disposition and the want to better themselves and keep improving and teach that content.
And I would almost I'd go on a limb and say, I'd rather not have the course taught than have it taught by somebody who is not properly prepared, because that's the first thing that our students, when they go out into a district, whether they're student teaching or their first year teaching, we always talk about, what are the do's and don't do's, and you've got to be properly prepared, or else those are the things that are going to get you into trouble. So it should be we all know we're all on this Zoom call, so we all know that it should be one of the most important courses that's taught in a pre-service program.
Absolutely. I'm wondering if there are any questions that you would like to ask of any of the presenters today in regards to content, or, I'm going to open it up, even experience in the classroom or facilitating these types of trainings. I see we have a question. Additionally, you can come off mute. But Barbara asks, Let me see here. How can we balance the prep standards within states that do not want certain issues addressed? Fabulous question, Barbara. Bonnie or Allison, would you like to, either one of you want to take that one?
This was where I think back a little bit to Bonnie's example of where can advocacy be done to help look at why they don't want things addressed and what movement, if any, can be made. I know that in different states that can look incredibly different, but who are the folks that you can bring to the table to help really advocate for what not only the standards are for students and for young people, but for the teacher prep standards to try to move some of these forward. I don't know if Bonnie, if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I think you really, Allison, you kind of addressed what I was going to mention. And I'm, when I talk about my thought went into the classroom as well. And, there are topic areas that, you can teach about consent without bringing in sexual health. You can teach about refusal, negotiation skills in different health education content. And we're all very much aware of some districts and how saying certain words is taboo, which on a sidebar is beyond me, but that's beside the fact. And thinking about how can we teach our students skills within our confines, if you will, and just being creative with that. But sadly, I think advocacy, that you're not the only person. You have a team of people, health service, mental health providers, community-based organizations, leaders, physicians, whomever in wherever you are, that it is a clear message, and getting people on local boards of education, getting policymakers. So those are all ideas.
If there are any other questions, again, this is the best time to ask. When I think about how people work around, I am reminded of the viral video that went out a few years ago of the PE teacher that couldn't talk about condoms, but used the example of a sock and how to put on a sock. And I have to give him credit because he even pinched the tip, and he was really he said, you got to pinch the tip. So yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, so if any other questions or last minute statements, we still have about 10 minutes. So really great. Thank you, Bill. Really great opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah, and I'm seeing the comment. I wish more universities and states would separate health and physical education, and I think I believe that as well. The reality being is that many states are requiring dual certification, and with the main focus, the primary certification on physical education and a cross endorsement in health education, and that is certainly the challenge. So getting to those 30 credits of what the teachers have to take and need to take in order to be effective sexual health educators. Get in on that conversation, and working with your state departments of education. Those are key aspects in influencing what the teachers will need for licensure. I see Wendy's here. Wendy does awesome work. Wendy Sellers. This is like a who's who, folks. I'm looking at all the names. I'm so proud to be on here with you. And, you know, folks are, they all bring such skill to the table. So thanks for being here.
Well, I am going to second that. And I want to thank both you, Bonnie and Allison, for presenting. I think we got a last minute question. Is there a way to access the recording for folks who weren't able to come? Yes, we will be sending this out to those who registered. And then as long as it's okay, we will also post this on the SECUS YouTube page as well. So there will be a place that you can go back to that. If there are no more questions, I honestly think both Allison and Bonnie did such an incredible job. That is probably why there have not been a lot of questions, along with the amazing people in the room. We definitely want to thank you. And from Fossey to all of you, the work continues. And we are always going to be here to help support and advance the work to ensure that all people, especially young people, can access inclusive, affirming sex education at schools. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, guys, looks like they're wrapping up. Hang on, sit tight.
Recording stopped.
We never leave until they kick us out because you never know what's going to be said.
Nora, you rock. Are you still on? Nora Gelprin?
Oh my gosh. Full name.
Hi, Jen. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Michaela. It's so good to see you. Allison and Bonnie, I don't know if you all know, I think Michelle does. Michaela was instrumental in the creation of the standards while she was interning with Fossey and advocates, and then put a lot more time into it afterwards. So we're very grateful. It's good to see your face, Michaela.
Great job, Michaela.
Nice to see you, Michaela. We were just emailing earlier today. It's so nice to see your face.
Oh, they just kicked us out. Well, guys, those were the future of sex education, and it seems like what's going to be taught in the future of sex education is mostly around race and social justice and intersectionality. I did pop in a whole bunch of documents in the chat as we were making our way through it. One of the documents that I did put in the chat was this is one of the things they shared about the national sexual health curriculum and the different levels of it and all that stuff. So obviously I haven't had a chance to look at this closely based on like grade level stuff like that, but it does lay it out. Let's just take a quick gander. Grades pre-K through 2. Let's see. Identify the benefits of healthy family relationships. Disease-causing germs, infectious diseases. Why is it wrong to bully others? Okay, I don't think there's anything wrong with those. That's fine. Grades 3 through 5 list healthy ways to express love and friendship. Describe basic male and female reproductive body parts and their functions. Explain how puberty develops. All right. Oh, here we go. So they're suggesting in grades 3 through 5, they're introducing the idea of gender expression. Describe personal characteristics related to gender expression and gender roles that make people different from one another. So grades 3 is when they start introducing that stuff. And this is on the CDC's website. Go to the last part. What does that mean, Sam? I'm making my way through. Oh, hang on. Okay. Hang on, my whole screen just went white for a second. Grades 6 through 8. We're getting into STDs. Oh my gosh. They're talking about a lot about sex when you get into grade 6, aren't they? 6 through, oh my goodness. Grades 9 through 12. Sam, I don't know what you want me to look at, to be honest. Let me see if I can find what Sam is referencing. 65 through 69. So I think that's 65. Grade 3 through 5, practice the complete score. Okay, curriculum provides information to help students understand the relevance of health expectations in their daily lives. Well, no, we're seeing trouble start around grade 3 though, and these are in the national standards according to the CDC that they just referenced. And this is again, grades 3 through 5. Yeah, Sam, I'm not clear on what you want me to look at, Sam, and to be honest, guys, I can't process an entire PDF on the fly because again, like I thank you for bearing with me for the last couple days. I do have a pretty bad head cold, and so I haven't been able to really stream, and my brain is a little foggy, so my processing speed is not as quick as it normally is. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to just spend some time with this on my own when I'm not live on the internet. But guys, I do want to thank you for joining me for Spy Stream today. Again, we watched SECUS, Sex Ed for Social Change, the National Teacher Prep Standards webinar. These are the people who create the standards for how sex ed is taught in schools K through 12. How nice of them to make that very clear for us that they want to teach a lot of racial stuff and social justice stuff in sex ed class starting in kindergarten. So that's what we did here today, guys. I want to just pop this into the chat once more. This is the document that they were referencing. And so you can take some time to look at it. I'm going to take some time to look at it. And I think we did get a basic idea of what was going on today. So I thought that was really good. And I just want to remind everyone, if you appreciate my work, please consider subscribing to my Substack. If you want to sign up for free, that's totally fine. And I understand that a lot of people times are tight. And so a free subscription is available, but I am looking for 35 more people to become paid subscribers before the end of the month. I'm posting on my Substack almost every single day, creating the most the most original Unwoke content on the internet, including this spy stream that you just watched. I am the only one bringing you inside these live trainings while they're happening so that you can see for yourself what's going on and decide for yourself whether it's something that you're comfortable with. I don't think it's my job to tell you what to be comfortable with and what not to be comfortable with. That is your job. It is your job to decide whether or not you want your kids learning what's being taught in the public schools. I simply view my job as showing you the information based on publicly available information, and that's what we do on my Substack. This is my content hub. This is where you can find all the information that I'm working on. And if you want to support the work I'm doing for $5 a month, $50 a year, you can become a founding member for $150. I really do appreciate it. I am funded completely by you. And I have a goal of getting 100 new paid supporters on my Substack by the end of the month. I'm 35 people away from hitting that goal. If I hit that goal, then the entire Substack is going to remain free and open to everyone, which is my preference. However, if I do not hit that goal, I'm going to start putting up a paywall because, to be quite frank, to make activism my full-time job, I do need people who are willing to support it. And so I'm hopeful that people will come forward on their own. I don't want to go to work for one of these political organizations. I don't want to be adherent to any political ideology. I want to be loyal to you and to what the truth actually is. I'm going to tell you things you want to hear. I'm going to tell you things you don't want to hear, but I will always bring receipts and I will always have nuanced takes that are not grounded in outrage or any of that. Sometimes you might like them, sometimes you might dislike them, but we're going to talk about what the truth is and we're going to be hinged into reality in a way that very few people are on the internet right now. So if you want to support the work I'm doing, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And please consider signing up for a paid subscription. I really, really do appreciate it because you guys make it possible for me to do things like Spy Stream at 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. All right, guys, I'm going to take my leave now. Again, I will not be streaming today at 5 because I'm not feeling well. But as a reminder for those in my confidence building workshop, we will be gathering together for our workshop tonight at 8 p.m. So that's going to be on the private Zoom call. If you are in the confidence building workshop, then I will plan to see you then. You should have a link in your email which I really do appreciate. And let me know if you didn't get it. And if you're not in my confidence building workshop, you can head over to activelyunwoke.com/work. You can actually still get access to the recording. I'm doing a whole series of monthly workshops. Actually, it's this one right here. I'm doing a whole series of monthly workshops based on just like grounded in psychology, bringing my organizational practice and training to online to basically give you guys unwoke training. So you don't have to worry about politics being infused into your professional development training. These are programs that I've created over the course of many years. I'm in the process of bringing them online to make them available on demand. We just did this Embrace It Confidence workshop last week. I really had such a great time doing it. And I will see the folks for the follow-up workshop later tonight. Come hell or high water, we're doing it. And if you're interested in signing up for future workshops or getting access to the recording, I've got the whole list here. Again, this is on my Substack. You can find it right up at the top. The Unwoke Your Work series right there. All right, guys. I will try to be around for happy hour tomorrow. Please keep an eye on my social media, my YouTube. I will be sending out updates. But again, thank you for joining me for Spy Stream. I really do appreciate it. Mount that like button on the way out the door. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.